Welcome back. On Monday, students in Broward will be heading back to the classroom, but for some, they are going to see a number of changes, including metal detectors. This week, I spoke to the chair of the Broward School Board, Lori Alhadeff.
So safety and security is a top priority of the school board, and we want to make sure that weapons don't get into our schools. And so metal detectors is one of those additional layers of school safety protection to prevent weapons, knives, vapes from getting onto our campuses. And we want to make sure that every high school in Broward County Public School had this additional layer of school safety protection. And I believe that it is going to really help to create a safer environment for our students.
You know, when Broward announced they were doing this, folks went to Miami-Dade, and Miami-Dade said, we don't think that that necessarily works. We don't think the studies show that it improves safety. We don't think that it acts as a real deterrence and can give a false sense of security to students. How do you respond to that?
So as a mother who lost their daughter in a school shooting, Alyssa, I want to do everything in my capability as a school board member to protect our children in our schools. And so I do believe that metal detectors will help serve as a deterrent from students to bringing those weapons into our schools. So they're going to think twice. And I want to make sure that we have these layers of safety protection in our schools.
I know from your personal experience, safety is paramount for you in terms of, it's one of the reasons why you ran to be on the school board. It's probably the single issue that drives you most in terms of your time on the school board. You know, I guess I want to take a small step back and just sort of say, you couldn't have envisioned this was going to be what you would be doing with your life prior to what happened at Marjory Stoneman Douglas. This wasn't, you had no intention of ever running for a school board or anything like that. I'm just wondering, in these years since, how have you grown into this role, and how do you shoulder this responsibility that you now take on?
So I was a teacher before. I was a stay-at-home mom for 14 years. And then when the tragedy happened, I turned my pain and grief into action. And I knew for me, in order to make change here in Broward County Public Schools, that I need to have a seat at the table. And so I've been the chair of the school board for the last 2 years. This is my 7th year on the school board. And I will continue to fight every single day to help to create those layers of safety protection in our schools to make sure that that tragedy never happens again.
Does it help you with your grief? Does it provide you some level of solace?
It does help me with my grief as far as I know that I can take action. On Valentine's Day, I had no ability to do anything. And so now I'm able to use my position to be able to make an impact and make a difference and know that our schools are safe at Broward County Public Schools.
Another issue this year is sort of, I don't want to say a new policy, but a modification of a policy with regard to cell phones. Cell phones previously had to be on silent. Now they have to be on airplane mode. Now, the one criticism that I've heard is that there's no real plan being discussed with teachers. I've talked to some teachers in the district. They're not sure how they're supposed to enforce this, what the plan is going forward. I don't think teachers have necessarily had a chance to really discuss it much with their principals. So are you concerned as to how this is going to get rolled out?
So we want our students to disconnect to reconnect. You know, we had COVID where students were socially isolated and then back to school, but our students are so engaged in their cell phones that they are not focusing on what the teachers are teaching. And we want to increase their ability to be able to have relationships with other students, to be able to focus, to prevent cyberbullying, to prevent when fights break out and then students are taking out their cell phones and filming it. And so this is one way, and I know that the rollout and the part with the teachers, there still needs to be conversation. So I will bring this feedback to Dr. Hepburn I know that focus on how are we going to prevent students from being on their cell phones. We ask them to turn their phones off or put into airplane mode. So we need to continue to have those conversations with our teachers, but also with our students, because our students, they're thinking about this as like a punishment, and it's not. We want them to be more engaged with their peers and also to be able to focus in class on what is being taught to them. So we know that we can continue to be that A school district.
Why not just forbid cell phones in classrooms entirely? Require that at the beginning of the day they put them in their locker and they don't get to take them out again until they go home.
So most schools don't have lockers, but they have backpacks. And, in case of an emergency situation, we do want to have students the ability to call their parents to let them know that they are okay.
I'm going to ask you one question with regard to salaries. I know that you've done well in terms of providing more for teachers and for others, but I'm told, and I'm just going to raise this with you, the support staff, the teachers' aides, there aren't very many of them anymore, and the ones that are in the district tend to actually have to work with some of the more troubled kids, some of the more challenging students. And it's my understanding that they're still in contract negotiations and that there is no real proposal to give them anything more than maybe a 2% raise when most of them are making $15 an hour. That's not very much. Do you think that they should be paid more? And where do you stand on where those negotiations stand right now?
So at the last budget meeting, I challenged Dr. Hepburn to cut $50 million from the budget. So the board is continuing to challenge the superintendent to cut money so that we can give money back to our support staff, teachers, and our principals. And I think it is extremely important that we continue to find any redundancies or if there's any waste going on, and so that we can give the money back to our staff, because we know that there is a lot of times they're underpaid, and we appreciate them very much, and we know that they work directly with our students, our most vulnerable populations, and that they deserve to have more money, but we have to be able to find that money to be able to provide that additional raise.
We'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully you're able to do better by then. But I also wanted to ask about class size. I'm hearing reports, and I don't know if, obviously we'll get a better feel for it after next week, but I'm being told that we can expect class sizes to grow because we have fewer teachers now in the district, and that some high schools may see class sizes of 40 or 50 students.
Yeah, so there is a challenge with class size. We want to make sure that the lower the student to teacher ratio. However, we will work with Dr. Hepburn to see what we can do to increase the number of teachers and keep that ratio down, because we want to be able to provide a top-notch level education for all of our students and continue to be an A school district.
But do you get the sense that class sizes are growing as a result of a teacher shortage?
I have heard some of as far as class sizes are growing. I know that we are continuing all the time to try to hire new teachers to be in Broward County Public Schools. I have not heard of any type of teacher shortage. But I will continue to discuss that with Dr. Hepburn to make sure that all of our teachers, we have enough teachers in our schools.
I remember the last time I interviewed Dr. Licata, Peter Licata, we spent a lot of time talking about the idea of closing some schools or repurposing some schools. And I know that plan started to move forward and then got pulled back. And I guess the district is now reassessing what to do. As you approach this with the information you've been given so far, and I think there's been a fair amount of information out there, are you under the belief that some schools should be closed or repurposed, or do you think that the size of the district should stay where it is in terms of number of facilities?
Yeah, so I definitely think that there should be some schools that should be redefined or repurposed in some capacity, or even closed. We can't continue in the same capacity with not having the number of students to be able to fill those seats and to be able to get that FTE funding. But we need to have those creative conversations with our families, with our communities, to see what is the best needs at the school. And I know that the board will be having these conversations soon. And I believe that Dr. Hepburn will make sure that the right things happen in those schools for our students and our families.
We'll be right back after the break.